Thank you for having me, Jonathan and Mario. Looking forward to a great conversation. And for those of you that are joining, don't hesitate to put questions in the Q&A or chat. Jonathan, you can give us advice on how to do that. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to make connections. And let's dive in, Mario. All right, so a little bit about me. First and foremost, I'm a very proud mom and wife. I lead through my values, and I have two grown daughters. Been married 20 years, and that's who I am. Second, I'm an avid sports fan. So the baseball season is getting ready to kick off. Opening day is Thursday, so I'm really excited about the Major League Baseball season. And my third pillar is my professional life. So I've been in the commercial space and the CPG space for more than 25 years. I currently lead revenue growth management and data science at BIC. I also lead our anti-counterfeit pillar as well. I'm a strong believer in driving sustainable growth and really thinking about a holistic approach to RGM and how do we ensure that data is part of that. Prior to joining BIC, I was at Coca-Cola for 20 years in many different capacities, from customer marketing to digital to business transformation, in-store execution, and finishing my career there in the RGM space. So really passionate about fact-based decision-making, cross-functional collaboration, and really understanding how we can drive what we call a triple win, a win for each of us as manufacturers or companies, a win for our partners or retailers, and a win for our consumers or shoppers. So a little bit about who is BIC. BIC was founded in 1944 with the crystal pen. I'm not sure if everyone knows what the crystal pen is, but it is currently in the Modern Museum of Art. And it's a very famous pen and still one of our top products around the world. We've grown through innovation and acquisition with a target of reaching $3 billion in 2025. Our core categories are stationery, lighters, and shavers, and we compete in 115 markets across the globe. You'll see some of our brands on this chart here. Bodymark, Cello, which is our brand in India, Tattly, which is Tattly and Inkbox, which are temporary tattoos, Rocketbook, which is a sustainable notebook. We recently acquired Tangle Teezer. So for those of you that are in the beauty industry, we're pleased to have a leading brush manufacturer as part of the BIC family now. We also own Tipex and Whiteout, and we do a good bit of work in what we call blade tech, where we do business-to-business work in our blades. We are known for our high quality, our safety as the #1 manufacturer of lighters in the world, affordability, we're the value for money player. We like to be essential to our consumers and trusted by all. So a little bit about us, and I hope that you find today's conversation interesting. I love somebody says we exclusively use crystal, so thank you so much. That's wonderful, wonderful to see. So the landscape of RGM is changing dramatically. Decisions are being made faster, which requires all of us as RGM experts to really try to keep up. And that's not easy because our lives are very fast-paced. The world that we are living in is very fast-paced as well. The amount of data at our fingertips is growing, and I would tell you, widely underutilized by most of us, as well as we're dealing with significant shifts in consumers and competition, making our old ways of doing things less effective. And we've seen those shifts prior to COVID, big shifts with COVID, and now we're seeing even more shifts after COVID. And our old ways of doing things and those gut instincts with the amount of data that we have are really leading to some missed opportunities. So today we're talking about data-driven strategies and why they matter. And really, they matter because they help us provide insight-driven recommendations and solutions to our sales organizations, to our marketing teams, and ultimately to our retailers. They help to make our decision-making more structured, replacing that gut feel or that instinct. And they allow us to get to a more predictive or prescriptive approach to RGM, which we'll talk about later in the conversation. It also is an opportunity for us to think about RGM holistically, not just price or promo or mix or trade, but think about all the levers holistically. And how can we think about when we take price, how does that impact some of the other levers? And how do we think about RGM from a total landscape, not just a single pillar? All right, so actions, we want to get to action. We want to get to executing in the retailer and being a successful execution. But it really takes more than just the data to do that. It takes being able to turn that data and those insights into a story that is not only feasible, but believable, that delivers successful execution. So historically, our organizations have really struggled with how to use data. Insights go unused or they're not clear. Decision makers may not interpret the data the same way that your data team does or you as an RGM expert does. The sales teams, they need our help. They need to understand what the data is telling us so they can take it in a believable fashion to our retailers and partners to sell in something that will eventually turn into that triple win that we'll talk about. So storytelling is key to turning your data and insight into action. The stories need to be compelling, they need to be relevant, and they need to be believable. So not only your internal teams understand the data, but your external partners understand the data as well. Those stories need to be clear and simple, and as I said, believable. So we're turning those insights into execution that result in a triple win for you, your company, your partner, and the consumer that we're selling all of our great products into. All right, so at BIC, we take the data and the insights to build the story and make the recommendations that we want to take to our salespeople and ultimately to our retailers. But a really important part of before we go to execution, before we go to selling, is that feasibility check. Is the recommendation that we're making based on the data and the insights something feasible for BIC? But is it also feasible and relevant for the retailer? And so that is a check that we do that helps us to help us understand how difficult is it to execute, how realistic is it to execute, what's the cost of doing it, is it something that's addressing a pain point that the retailer has today? So that feasibility check for us at BIC is critical to ensuring that we have success when we go to execution. And so I would encourage you to think about the insight and story that you built. Are they relevant to your salesperson and ultimately your retailer? And are they truly feasible to execute in the marketplace? That leads us to the triple win that I've talked about. And the triple win is really all about aligning your interests to your customers and your shoppers, going from zero sum to a triple win so that everybody wins. Your brand wins, your retailer wins, and your shopper. So we're really aligning our value creation for all the key stakeholders in the value chain. We're moving from trade-offs to what's going to make the category grow, what's going to make our partnership with the retailer grow. And we're using that data-driven approach to show why we believe that, what does the data tell us, and how do we believe that all three stakeholders in the value chain are going to win and share success. This is a really important piece to bringing your data and your insights to life through your story. So I'm going to pause here, and I believe this is where I'm going to ask you, how are your teams doing today in prioritizing opportunities and turning them into triple win solutions?
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Kelly. Let me just launch the poll. And now the audience should see the poll. Let me also read the question out loud for our attendees joining via phone. How good are your teams today in prioritizing opportunities and turning them into triple win solutions? And the answers are very poor, poor, fair, good, excellent, or not answer. I see a lot of people answering already. It's single choice. We're at 45%, now 50%. And I give you 30 seconds more. So on your screen, there should be a pop-up where you can indicate your choice. 3, 2, 1. And let me end the poll and present you with the results. Here are the results. Would you have expected those, Kelly?
I would have expected those. I think that it's a journey, and sometimes our pain points don't always align. So this is really about understanding the pain points of your retailers and really understanding the data that is typically going to be your shopper or consumer base. So you can bring that to life and help the retailer along and help your salespeople in selling that triple win. So I think it's really important that if you're in the fair space, that's okay. At least you're testing the waters, you're doing the work, you're trying to create a win for everyone in the value chain. But it's a muscle that you have to exercise. We all had the luxury of exercising our price muscle with COVID. This triple win is just like that. It's a muscle that we need to exercise and turning that data into insights and a story that will help all three players in the value chain. There's a great question in the chat from Justo around, are we direct to market or through distributors? And I would guess that most of us have both. I can tell you that BIC has both. And in this value chain perspective, we have a model at BIC that we look to understand what is the value in a distributor model versus the value in a direct model. So just so if you want to connect with me offline, we're happy to talk through how we're doing that and thinking about how the value breaks down so that you have a triple win in the distributor model as well. All right. So I want to reiterate that we're living in a world of constant change. And so I don't know how many of you have heard about the VUCA world, but this is something we talk about a lot at BIC. We're living in a volatile world with rapid market change, price fluctuations, raw material cost changes, a lot of uncertainty. Depending on how your category is doing, you may have some unpredictability, some decline, some increase, complexity. We have the market dynamics are changing every day. We've got new regulations in the US. We've got tariffs that we're managing through, and then ambiguity. A lot of times things aren't unclear. That requires us to really think about things in a different way. It complicates our decision making. For instance, launching a new innovative product where you have no sales data. There's a lot of ambiguity there. All of this leads to the need for that data-driven approach to RGM, for having to have agility and resilience. Many of your sales organizations, marketing teams are going to be looking to you for that resilience and helping to understand what are those levers that I need to pull to drive growth for our company, but for my retailer and the category, and data is the key to that. So at BIC, we think about data science through many different lenses, from consumer insights, marketing data, shopper commercial data, financial data, syndicated data, and many of your retailers also have their own data. Data science is the art of looking at all of this data together, to modeling this data so that we understand the interactions and we can come up with those insights. It's not just looking at consumer data or financial data, but it's bringing it all together to tell that story so that we can make smarter decisions that help our companies as well as our retailers. As we think about this mission of data science and data-driven insights at BIC, we think about it through really four steps in the journey. The first is descriptive. I would guess we're all doing this. This is the KPIs that we track every day, every week, every month. We measure, we report on them. This may be what you're measured on from a bonus perspective, those sorts of things. These are things that you can clearly measure and you look back on and you think about, how do I improve that moving forward? The second is really diagnostic. Think about this from how did a promotion perform? Why did that happen? We look back at historical data, we analyze it, we try to detect, were my assumptions going in correct? When we're able to explain what happened, that's really diagnostic. And we do that in a lot of things today in RGM. But where we want to get to is predictive. And this is thinking about what's happening in the category, what's happening in our business, how can I simulate so that I can make recommendations for our organization that will help drive our business, will help drive our category, will help anticipate where the business is going. At BIC, one of the great examples we do is our category forecasts for the broader category, total category, as well as BIC's individual, where we're doing business, what does our forecast look like? So forecasting for us is a place that we've mastered this predictive space in, and we look at it on a regular basis throughout the year to help us understand how are our forecasts working and what changes can we anticipate. But the ultimate is really that prescriptive. What should I do? This is kind of where scenario planning comes in. How do I optimize my plan? There's a lot of opportunity when you're in your planning and you're not meeting your goal to plan. How can I optimize that? How can we make some in-market or in-year shifts? What can I recommend to the marketplace or to my sales organization that we can go execute? And this is where BIC has partnered with Buynomics. And so I want to ask Mario to, I think we've got a poll question, and I'm going to ask Mario to walk us through some of the Buynomics capabilities.
Yes.
Absolutely. So yeah, Jonathan, I think the question is yours, but essentially it's about the level of RGM maturity in your organization. So if you could pull up the poll, then...
Yes, let me quickly pull up the poll. Poll number 2 today. Also reading a question again for everybody joining via phone. What level of RGM maturity do you observe in your team or organization today? And the answer options were presented some minutes ago: descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, or prescriptive, or not answer. And we already have 33% of attendees answering, now at 45. It's filling.
And I would tell you to pick the one that's closest to where you are as a majority of your RGM capability, because some things won't ever leave descriptive. And some things you want to get to that predictive and prescriptive.
Exactly. And okay, more than 100 people answered already. Let me end this poll now and share the results with you. What do you think?
Yeah, happy to comment a bit from, let's say, the Buynomics perspective on the industry and also, let's say, the different customers and prospects that we've been guiding through over the past years. I think it's a very fair representation of what we also see out there. So a lot of people are very good at looking, let's say, backwards, analyzing the past, understanding what has happened. But as soon as it comes to more of a predictive setup, trying to understand what would happen if, for example, I change my pricing strategy, I adapt a new promotional structure, I introduce maybe new products, adapt my portfolio, then it becomes oftentimes a little bit more difficult. And specifically the data availability in some cases and how to get those insights and to extract those from the data is often where the connection lacks a little bit. What we see, and yeah, typically that's where we then try to help and make that move from let's say descriptive diagnostic setup more into a predictive world, and where we try to focus on. So yeah, I think, Kelly, we have one last slide for you, and then we
Yep,
can do a bit more
absolutely. And before we shift to that, Keith's got a great question, and I know we'll get to Q&A at the end. But his question is around KPIs, and I'm a firm believer what you measure moves. So we have standardized RGM KPIs and only a few at BIC, and the entire commercial organization across all of BIC and all of our 115 countries is held to those same. We only have 3. And they're held consistently to those. So it has helped us to really unlock growth, to provide some consistency and some clarity. So when we think about getting to that predictive and prescriptive, we're partnering with Buynomics, and they're squarely in the space where BIC is looking to really drive capability and unlock growth. And that is centricity, using our insights and our analytics to respond to how do we use RGM to come up with solutions that are going to help our business, our retailers, and our consumers, as well as revenue growth management. And so we're partnering with them, but these capabilities that Buynomics is helping us to bring to life allow us to look at things more prescriptively and predictively. And so I wanted, if you'll build out the slide, Mario, there's this number of things that we're looking at with the Buynomics capability. And those are things that I'm sure all of you are looking at on a day-to-day basis. How do we think about changes to our retail prices? How do we think about changes to our packs and our portfolio? That's really the secret sauce. Do you have on the shelf what shoppers and consumers are looking for? How do we think about changes to promotion, depth, and frequency? Promotion can really volume and really hurt your GP if you've got the wrong promotion. So thinking about depth, frequency, is it the right promotion on the right product? How does it interact with the other products on the shelf is super important. And then cost to serve. How are we changing costs with our customers? What are the prices, the terms that we have with our customers, and understanding what are all of these spaces so that we can leverage real data and come up with recommendations that we can then take to our sales organization and our retail. But we're using Buynomics to understand all of these dynamics: pricing, pack and portfolio, promotion, and customer pricing, and in turn, it's really helping us to unlock. This is a predictive and prescriptive capability that we're using. We're simulating changes in actual data that we can then turn into real live executable tactics that we can take to our retailers based on what we predict is going to happen when we simulate with the data and the model from Buynomics.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Kelly. Before we jump over into the Buynomics part, there's actually one very good question from Tracy on the KPIs that you mentioned earlier, Kelly. Can you share the 3 KPIs that you work with mainly at BIC?
Yeah, we measure our net sales ahead of volume and inflation. So that's the first one, so top line growth. We measure the productivity of our portfolio. We call that our net sales per SKU growth productivity. And then the third one is our trade investment. Is our trade investment growing faster or slower than our top line, our net sales? So those are 3 really strong measures for us. It helps to ensure that we're driving top line growth, we've got the right portfolio in place, and we're making the right investments with our customer partners.
Makes perfect sense. Amazing. And there's one more actually, and more on promotion frequency. So concretely, how do you analyze and measure promo frequency impact on your promo ROI?
So we look at it historically on just like you would the baseline and a lift, and we look at where are we seeing the best investment. There's a lot of data that goes into promotion. Where did the investment help you to drive the best return? So you can kind of overlay the investment, the baseline, the lift, many different factors, and understand whether or not that investment worked for you. Then it helps you to understand what happened on shelf at the same time, because you look at non-promoted and promoted at the same time, and really understand, was that promotion, the length of it or the depth of it really working for us. Promotion is a complicated one, and one that predictive and prescriptive can really help us as RGM experts as we move forward.
Great. Thanks a lot, Kelly. Let me briefly go through a little bit of background on Buynomics so that the story becomes round. While we do that, also please feel free to collect additional questions in the chat so we can come back to them during our Q&A session. So essentially what Buynomics provides is twofold. So we offer a software as a service platform which allows you in the end to holistically optimize your pricing, your promotions, your price pack architecture, and holistically look at all of the RGM challenges and optimize across those. Now, the core part and what is powered by is our Virtual Shopper AI. And Virtual Shopper AI is really understanding what are the shopper's preferences for individual products and their attributes, and then utilizing that preferences or those preferences to predict shopper demand accurately. And we do that via integrating many different data sources. Primarily, we look at historical sales data, product information, but can also integrate other sources on top, which allows us then to build a very good, very, let's say, actual representation of a shopper in a virtual environment that allows you to test as many changes as you would like to do to those virtual shoppers, and then evaluate the impact on your top line KPIs, be it sales, be it revenue, be it profitability margins, whatever you're interested in. Now, I think what we have seen in Kelly's presentation and also what we have been working on in the past years is really enabling the shift from descriptive to predictive to prescriptive. And we have been working mostly in recent time on the prescriptive part. So I'm happy to show you also a little bit on that in a few slides. But what's really, really important is that the prescriptive part is only enabled via our modeling that is behind. Because ultimately, it's really crucial to understand how shoppers are behaving in front of the shelf. And this is what we build our virtual shopper method around. So we really try to dig deep into individual willingness to pay for product attributes so that we can then rebuild actual shopper preferences for the specific products that are present in the market in a certain category. And then based on the prices of those products, based on promotions that are in the market, based on the different portfolios that we observe, and we are then able to derive the purchasing decisions of those shoppers. And ultimately, by deriving those purchasing decisions, we come up with the amount of units being sold, and that relates into revenue and profitability. Now, with that underlying basis, we are then able to also shift, let's say, from a what-if scenario building into a more prescriptive world of asking questions: how do I optimize my profitability? How do I optimize my market share while also looking at my revenue? And this is where we developed our decision guide, which basically turns, let's say, a little bit the usual way of making predictions or making scenarios around, and really comes from a KPI-driven perspective, where you can then set up individual KPIs you're targeting, you're optimizing for, while keeping certain guardrails, constraints. For example, brand A should be a higher, lower position to brand B, where you can keep those, include your competitor reactions, and simulate what would actually be the best optimal pricing that you can achieve with those constraints and targeting for certain KPIs. So this is, again, on the ladder that we've discussed earlier. I think this is the last step. Prescriptive analytics also works on base prices, promotional prices, so you can see the split there and optimize separately. I think this is then ultimately making decision making even easier and shedding a lot of transparency and enabling teams in the end on spending more time on strategic tasks, strategic work, and having software and tools do the heavy lifting. So I think we've come almost to an end. But Kelly, I'd like to ask you one more question before we jump into the Q&A. And that question is about the main takeaways from today's webinar, from today's session. So
Absolutely. So thank you. And thank you for allowing me to join you today, and happy to take questions at the end. But I want to leave you with just a few things to consider when you're thinking about all this data at your fingertips. How do you turn that into insights? And more importantly, how do you turn that into the story that is believable, that's relevant, that's feasible to execute? Storytelling is your key to success. Many people don't understand the data. They don't trust the data. They don't really know what the data is telling them. So building that story and a narrative that will help your sales organization, ultimately your retail partners, to execute is key to your success. They need to be simple stories, easy to understand, and based on data that people understand as well. Creating that triple win creates a win for everyone in your value chain. It allows you to align your incentives to drive sustainable growth. It also gives you credibility with your retailers, and them credibility with their shoppers, because you're creating a win for everybody in the value chain, not just yourself. Be aware of all the complexities that are coming your way, and leverage the predictive capabilities to help you make smarter decision making. And AI is the buzzword around RGM today, but what it really allows you to do is to think about RGM holistically, to optimize all the levers at your fingertips, not just price or promo. You get to move past your traditional models into a more sophisticated model. But what I like to tell people is RGM is not rocket science. And our role as RGM experts is to make it as easy to understand as we possibly can. And so that's really what this key is to turn in complex into simple so that it can be sold in.
amazing. Thanks a lot for wrapping it up. I see Jonathan also turning back on his camera. I think we have quite a few questions.
Yes, the chat super active again. Thank you all for your contributions, for your questions, for your comments. I will read some, and I try to combine some questions on the similar topic together. First one would be from James about your RGM journey and business routines, and specific key challenges, Kelly, that you might have encountered in the past.
Yep. So I've been in the RGM space 15 or so years, and when I joined BIC 5 years ago, RGM was largely thought of as price. So that would tell you that was my #1 challenge when I came to BIC, was defining what RGM is and what RGM isn't. And once we did that, we defined what RGM is through our 4 pillars. We built the KPIs to measure our success. So we'd have a story to tell back to leadership, to tell back to our investor community of what was the benefit of RGM. The other struggle was not everybody believes, or hurdle, obstacle was not everybody believes RGM is their role to play. And I'm a firm believer that everybody in the organization touches RGM. From your finance community, who's helping us to understand top and bottom line growth, to our supply chain, critically important to what does our portfolio look like, and can we deliver upon the needs that we have when we run a promotion or we change the price pack architecture on shelf, to our sales organization and our marketers that really need to understand the value for our retailers and the shoppers in the recommendations that we're making. So we faced many complexities along the way, but what I would tell you is that we had to make it simple enough through our 4 pillars, which are price, assortment and mix, promo, and trade, so that it could be easily understood, so we could understood, we could train people on it, and we could measure it so that we could turn that value back to the organization on, this is what we've delivered via price and mix. This is what we've delivered through optimizing our portfolio. This is what promotions are delivering for us, or where we might be investing too much in promotions. And here's how we're moving our organization from unconditional spend to conditional spend.
These are great insights. And I think a question from Simon directly ties into this. And he asked, as we compete for internal allocation of resources, people, data, tech, etc., for the RGM function, how do you measure in BIC the specific contribution of RGM to business performance?
Yep. So through our KPIs, we can measure what is the price and mix contribution. So we have a price volume mix tool that helps us to understand that. So we can understand what our new pricing decisions, what their contribution is to the organization. You can also easily measure, well, not necessarily easily, you can measure promotion and understand how that's doing to help you drive volume or help you drive new shoppers into your category, or increase market share. On our portfolio work and optimization of our portfolio, by reducing your long tail of SKUs, you're really making the more profitable SKUs work better for you. So you have a KPI you can turn right back to the organization saying, we've reduced this amount of complexity in our portfolio, and that has driven an average net sales increase per SKU of X. And then every trade dollar that you're able to save really goes directly to the bottom line. So through those 3 KPIs, we're able to go right back to the organization and tell them what we've delivered.
Great. And I think this ties directly into your question, Amandine, on the impact of RGM to the business. Maybe a follow-up question from Trevor would be, how long does the RGM function at BIC exist at all?
Yeah, so we've grown fast at BIC. When I joined BIC in 2020, we had about 5 or 6 RGM experts or subject matter experts globally. I lead a team centrally of 14, but we have about 35 RGM experts globally now. So we have grown rapidly. We've built what RGM is, we've trained the entire organization on it, and now we're making a pivot to how do you execute RGM, and putting tools, easy to use tools, in the hands of all of our experts around the world.
Great. And in terms of structure, does it sit under a specific department, valid as finance, commercial,
Yeah.
or?
We sit under the Chief Commercial Officer. And so the Chief Commercial Officer manages sales for all the regions, marketing, RGM, our digital. So think about it, all commercial functions sit under our Chief Commercial Officer.
Okay, great. And the next question from Paula is probably towards us, Mario. Interested to hear how you're monitoring and training your AI models to test the output. As you're seeing greater accuracy than with humans, I'm wondering how you avoid historical bias when shoppers pivot and change approach.
Yeah, it's a great question. So 2 answers to that. So we typically model on the most granular level of data available, which would be usually a combination of retailer, SKU, and then a weekly time dimension. I think that's the second part also where the question is guided. And the other part is that we'll always maintain an unbiased testing split in the input data. So if you imagine you're inputting 3 years of data to train the model, then we'll always reserve a certain period of time that is not observed by the model and just used for testing. So it's basically blind forecasting of the model. We validate the accuracy of the model with that blind forecasting period. And while we update the model consistently with new data, we always remain that and test again for this blind forecasting period.
Yeah. And I think Angela's question also ties directly into this. It's more about the data part. If you want to use a Buynomics recommendation to present an idea to a client, for example, a retailer, can you explicitly mention the output of Buynomics data, which is not Buynomics data, but the data of the manufacturer? or is there any confidentially?
Yeah, depends a bit on the very concrete setup, but what we've seen is that typically people, when talking to their retailing partners, present slides anyways, and then share findings that they have been observing throughout the Buynomics analytics and the forecasting capabilities. So that's, I would say, the usual way how information is being shared.
Yeah, great. And I think the next question is also, we got a lot of questions and we make sure to answer all the questions in the end, either via the follow-up email or personally, also considering the time. But one question from Keith is, how have you addressed the issue that sometimes data proves points the teams do not want to believe? Example, a large retailer's favorite promo is not profitable, bringing value, or the data shows that the brand is not as incremental as they believe.
Yeah, so Mario, I'll add there, and then maybe you have something to add on. So this is a key obstacle or hurdle that you as an RGM expert need to kind of wrap your head around. And the first people that you need to build that belief and trust in the data is your sales organization. Because from a retailer perspective, that I don't want to believe that data, there's probably something underlying in that. So when I read Keith's question, the retailer might just be looking for more investment from you versus wanting to understand the data. And there may be a way for the retailer to make more with less promotion or a different assortment or things like that. And the data will help us understand that. So first and foremost, make sure that the salesperson that's going to interact on a regular basis with that retailer understands the data and can anticipate some questions. The second thing that salesperson needs to really start to understand in their relationship with that retailer is, what are they really trying to achieve? Are they looking for more investment from you as a manufacturer and a supplier to them, or are they really looking for you to be the category growth driver or the leader? So you have to understand, what are they trying to achieve, so that the data can tell us many different things. And in the case that Keith said, as you know, a promo may not be profitable or bringing the value that that the retailer believes it's bringing. Well, it may be that they don't need to promote that product at all. So I think it's getting to what is the retailer trying to achieve? Are we on the same page? And then helping to build that goes back to the feasibility and the relevance of what you're trying to sell into your retailer. Are we both trying to achieve the same thing together? So that goes back to the triple win. But first, building that belief and the understanding of the data in your own team, in your RGM team and your sales team, is key to your success.
Yeah. I think just briefly to add on that, I fully agree with all of the points. I think the beauty of data ultimately is that typically it doesn't lie, right? So you get all of the transparency that you actually want in your conversation with the retailer or the retailing partner. You get it via understanding the data and making an informed decision based on that. And it's a lot of prep on your end. But if you get it right, then this can be also used to everybody's advantage. And that's ultimately the triple win that we've been speaking about.
Okay, great. I think we have a lot more questions, but we make sure to answer them. Thank you all for your questions. Thank you so much, Kelly, for joining us today. Really, really valuable insights. And I think in terms of resonance, engagement in the chat, the audience really liked.
Yep, and I was reading through some of the questions in the chat, some great questions. If we didn't get to them, I'll work with Jonathan and Mario to make sure we get them answered. As you can tell, I'm really passionate about making sure that we build selling stories that people understand, that they believe in, that help advance our capability. Because like I said, it's not rocket science. I believe that we can bring more into the capability, more experts into the capability, and grow this and help to deliver more triple wins. So thank you for all the great questions. Don't hesitate to reach out to me and connect with me on LinkedIn, and Mario and Jonathan and I will make sure we answer all of your questions.
Thank you so much, Kelly.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of the week. See you all. Bye-bye.